let's get to the topic of the day, cars, and let's see if we can, focus on that. Client comes in, they want to file a Chapter 7. They have a 2021 Kia that hasn't been stolen yet, and they want to keep that car, and there's a loan on it. What are their options when they're filing a Chapter 7?
Oh, well, if they want to keep it, they need to pay for it in general. They can keep the current deal that they have with their lender and just keep paying for it. Have insurance, take care of it, pay it off. That's great. That's easy.
Good morning and welcome in to another edition of the Miller Law Chronicles Podcast. Today we're going to talk about cars and bankruptcy. It could be cars, motorcycles, mobile homes, any assets that you have that may have a lien, and how a bankruptcy can help you deal with that asset, whether you want to keep it, whether you want to give it away. We're even going to talk about that situation where you want to get rid of your vehicle, automobile, and the lender doesn't want it. So what are we going to do? But more important than vehicles or anything like that, I'm excited, as I always am, to welcome Deborah Stencel, Attorney Deborah Stencel, to our podcast today. And Deborah and I were just talking before about an interesting topic. I'm going to get to that. But first, I want to say welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, sir. I am so pleased to be here once again.
Before we got on the podcast and we hit the record button, we were talking about different jobs. And you were telling me you think you have 9 different jobs, which I know how busy you are, so I can kind of understand how that number continues to escalate because you're so good at so many different things. But I also have noticed this with many of our clients that no one seems to be working like a full-time job, like 40 hours, and then maybe 10 hours doing something else. It just seems like people are putting together a puzzle of employment where they may be working multiple jobs. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are and what you think is causing this kind of change in the workforce.
Well, for me, my handful of the things I do outside of being a lawyer are for joy. So working for comedy sports or doing comedy or acting for which I get, tiny bits of money. That's primarily driven by joy. Taking care of my father, which is another one of the things I count as a job. That is that's for love. But for my clients, I'm seeing a lot of underemployment at the primary employer, not being paid enough, not getting enough hours. So they have to supplement with something else like Uber Eats or DoorDash or the mall, working in retail. Amazon, big one.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of this post-COVID world. It used to be someone would work, hey, I'm going to work a 40-hour week at UPS. And in the evenings and the weekends, I'm going to go, bang on a cash register at Kohl's or something like that. And now, ever since COVID, with the advent of and the ability for people to work remotely and work for businesses anywhere in the world, it's really given the people the flexibility to just work anytime, anywhere. And it's a good thing, but it probably can be harrying. What's that word? How about stressful? Harrowing. It could be harrowing.
You've got it.
Meaning, if you're doing so many different things and you're working from home, how do you have time for your personal life? Because you can literally always be working.
It is really difficult. I found that proper calendaring and letting my family know where I am is important. Now, the joy is my primary job. Being a lawyer, I am working from home. So once I started working from home, I gained 10, 12 hours a week in getting ready, going to the dry cleaner, traveling to work. So I gained some time by being full-time work from home because I can wear sweatpants and not lawyer clothes every day and not drive back and forth. So there is a positive to it as well.
Right. Some people would say that it could be a psychological thing that people are filling their time with so many different things because they're not happy with their lives and are just trying to find the next best thing. I know you're not doing that because you're busy with, like you said, your passion and that type of thing. But I think when you work from home and all that kind of stuff, you can really lose that work life balance and it turns into work. So that's a very important thing to be able to monitor.
It is hard to turn off work when you live in your office. So, if I didn't have somewhere to be in the evening, I would just stay at the desk every day
Right,
because there's always something else to do.
right. And then I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Uh,
do you have any funny stories that happened this week
This week, I don't know if you're looking for something specific, but I don't know what it is.
in comedy sports and you think fast? So I was just trying to
Oh,
bring that out
well, I
in you.
failed on that one.
So I want to see how quick can you make something up?
Can I make something up?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I was driving down the road because I did have to come into the office to see a client who I almost forgot. So I was a little late and I was rushing down the highway. And there was this truck in front of me, and the truck had a bumper sticker or a couple of bumper stickers. And one of them was, call here if you don't like my driving. Another one said 100% safety guaranteed. But both of his back doors were open and there was stuff flying out of the back of the thing. And so I drove around him rather than call and complain about him. I drove around him and I tried to wave at him to say, "Hey, you should pull over," and he flipped me off. So
Oh,
no good deed.
so, so did that really happen or did you make that up?
No, I made that
Okay. Okay. Truth. Truth be told, that's a good story.
up. Yeah.
That was very good.
Thank
That
you.
was very good. My wife's 60th birthday is on Saturday.
Oh.
60 years, unbelievable. I feel like I've known her for 40 of those years, so
Mhm.
pretty incredible. I've
That's
only
amazing.
known you longer than my wife.
That's right. What were you on, like 70 years now?
Yes,
Yes.
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 So let's get to the topic of the day, cars, and let's see if we can, focus on that. Client comes in, they want to file a Chapter 7. They have a 2021 Kia that hasn't been stolen yet, and they want to keep that car, and there's a loan on it. What are their options when they're filing a Chapter 7?
Oh, well, if they want to keep it, they need to pay for it in general. They can keep the current deal that they have with their lender and just keep paying for it. Have insurance, take care of it, pay it off. That's great. That's easy. Now, there are sometimes other options. For instance, if the Kia is worth $5,000 and they owe 10, which happens sometimes if the interest rate is terrible or if they traded in another car to buy this one and rolled over some loan into the loan that they have now. They can do something called redemption, where you get a loan to buy out your car for its value and discharge the rest. So they'd walk away owing 5 and not 10, in my example. And then I guess a third option, well, not to keep it, but if you didn't want it, you could surrender it and not pay for it anymore. And of course, in that case, you would no longer have the car.
Okay, great. So someone comes on the car, they want to keep it, they can reaffirm, keep it in the bankruptcy. They could surrender the car or really not reaffirm, but keep making the payments on the car. And at any time after the bankruptcy is done, they could, in theory, surrender the car and not worry about any sort of deficiency.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. And then the other option, what happens in a Chapter 13 if I have a car and I want to keep it? Similar to the 2021 Kia that hasn't been stolen yet.
Which is a very good joke, by the way. If you file a Chapter 13 for most cars, you're going to pay what you owe. However, there may be an improvement on your interest rate. There's a formula that's set forth and has been in use for 19 years now. It's called the till rate after the case that it's based on. So it's the prime rate plus 1 to 3%. So if your interest rate is in the teens or 20s, you go down. Currently, it's about 10%. So you save some money there. If your loan is over 2.5 years old and you still owe more than the car is worth, then you can do something called a cram down. Now, in a good
Cram down,
way,
it sounds like a health issue.
it does sound kind of gross. But the idea is you owe this, the car is worth this. So one hand is above the other for those just listening. And the cram down is you squish down what you owe to what it's. Once you've been in a car loan 2.5 years, the goal is to be working on equity in the vehicle, right? But sometimes bad things happen. Maybe the original loan wasn't great. Maybe the original interest rate wasn't great. Same as I said a minute ago with redemption. And so, in those rare circumstances, we can save you some money in a Chapter 13 by paying what it's worth, not what you owe.
Right, which can be a savings. But sometimes someone has a car that they owe. I had it this morning. It was, like a 2020 Dodge Ram that was still worth about $28,000, but they owed 47 on it. And they had the car for 3 years. So in theory, if they do a Chapter 13 and they were paying like $1,000 a month, $1,100 a month for this car. So if they came in and did a Chapter 13 and say the car's worth 21,000, they had the car for more than 2.5 years. I know the Chapter 13 payment's a little bit different, but what would their approximate payment be if the car was worth about 21,000?
Well, just for the car alone in a 5-year plan, my calculator's on my phone, which is recording it. So now
So,
I have to
but
use my head.
I
It
can
would be
I
less than
can do it.
$500.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, less than five. I don't want to put you on the spot for
Well, 5
math.
times 60 is 30. So $30,000 car with interest, $30,000 total with interest would be 500 a month, right?
Right. And what's 30 times five?
30 times 5 is 150.
And then if you divide that by two, what do you have?
75.
Exactly. Thank you. You are good at math. Right. So essentially, you have this Dodge Ram, the 21, you were paying, $1,100 a month, did a Chapter 13 for someone. The equivalent payment that they paid through their bankruptcy was just over $430 a month. And it was saving them 500 a month, 600 a month. They get to
Wow.
keep the car. Everyone's happy. You know, Another thing, it's always important to keep insurance on that car. So whether you're surrendering your car, whether you're doing a Chapter 13 or a Chapter 7, while that car is in your fingers or in your hands, you need to have insurance at all times. So
Yep.
you may call JD Bywriter, or you may want to call, maybe anyone. Say, hey, I'm surrendering my car, come pick it up. Keep insurance on that car, up to the moment it's not in your hands.
That's right. I gave a client that speech once and he was going to surrender it. And I said, well, you need to keep it insured until they take it. And he said, well, I'm not driving it. I said, I don't care. The neighbor kids could break in, steal it, run over somebody's dog, cost you money because you own the car. And he's like, I'm not driving it. I don't need to keep it insured. I said, okay, I have advised you. 6 or 7 months later, I walk through the front of the office and he is at the front desk talking to our receptionist. And when I walked through, he hit the deck. He just dove behind the counter. And I leaned over and said, what are you doing? He said, I didn't want to see you. I said, why? What did I do? And he said, well, you know how you told me to keep insurance on the car? And I was like, yes, I didn't. And then the neighbor kids stole my car and caused a bunch of damage. And now I have to dismiss my 13 and file a new one because I have $15,000 in new debt. Yeah.
Right. I've often wondered if I file bankruptcy on October 1st, I tell the lender I want to surrender the car. I stop the insurance on the car, and then I haven't surrendered it yet, but the car is in an accident post filing. Could they hold me responsible for the damage of the car after filing?
The damage to the car that we're surrendering?
Yeah, because the accident happened post filing. So is that like when I file the case, the car's worth 20,000 when I file the case, all of a sudden the car's worth 4 and I don't
Yeah,
have insurance.
they don't, I believe, because it's still titled to you. So maybe you've caused them a harm that they could pursue by not insuring it. You certainly had a contractual obligation to insure it. You certainly had a legal obligation to insure it. But the fact of the matter is, if they're going to sue you for that $16,000, they're going to spend 10. So they don't generally pursue that. And usually they just take their loss. That's what I've seen. I suppose
Okay.
theoretically they could.
Okay, so now the next question that I have my 2010. Actually, what was your first car?
I had a 1998 Ford Taurus in law school.
Was it was it
1988.
like this maroon color?
No, it was that black color, and it was the version of Tauruses where the paint chipped off the top, so it was faded and weird looking. I don't know if you
Right.
remember that paint problem that they had.
Yeah. And if I remember the Taurus, it was rounded. It had at the time, it really was a futuristic, kind of looking car. A little. It was a big sedan, but it
Yeah,
was rounded. That was a good car for Ford.
yeah. They stopped making those, I don't know, like a decade ago,
That
and
was
I
a
was
big
sad for
car.
them.
So you have what year was it?
Well, I said 98, but that can't be right. It must have been in 88.
Okay. So let's say you have a 1988 Ford Taurus and you took a title loan out on the car
Yeah.
and you owe $2,800 on the car. You rent and the car's been sitting in the backyard and you're moving and the landlord says, "Yeah, bye-bye and please take that car with you." Car doesn't run and the lender won't come get it. They won't give you clear title. What happens? And you file bankruptcy. You're not responsible for the debt, but you have your black Ford Taurus still on your back that you got to deal with. What do you do?
Well, until very recently, I would have had to find what are those places called? A salvage lot that would take it without the title, which is difficult. It's not impossible, but it's difficult. And usually, what they do is they take it and they call the lender and say, "This is a piece of junk. We were going to give her $50 and we're going to squish it in the machine." And the lender would release the title to the salvage yard, and the salvage yard would pay the $50 to the lender. And that would be the end of it, but probably I'd have to go out of pocket to tow it to the salvage yard.
Right. Is there anything we can do after a bankruptcy chapter 7 is done? Or let's say someone's in a chapter 13 and they want to surrender the car and the lender won't take it. Is there anything that we can get some sort of order from the bankruptcy court to force the lender to pick up the car?
No, they don't have to pick it up. They have the option, but as an economic matter for an 88 Ford Taurus, no lender's going to come pick up a 30-year-old car, 27, however many years that is. They're just not going to, because it's not worth it. They'll spend $800 on a tow truck or whatever and get no money out of it. So they're not going to do that. But this very smart colleague of mine recently told me that there are some new solutions out there. Some companies will take care of it for you. They'll pick it up, negotiate with the lender, and you don't have to go out of pocket. So that's an exciting change in the world of bankruptcy, to get some of these cars, I think of them as zombie cars, out of people's lives. I mean, I must take the "why won't they pick up my car" call 5 times a week from
Really,
clients.
that much?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, the firm does, maybe not me personally, but I see the messages and the calls around the Chapter 13 department. And they're anxious and they want their car gone because they want to use the driveway spot, or the landlord's mad, or the city wants to ticket them. And creditors can move slowly, particularly during a 13, to pick up a surrendered car.
Sure. And there's solutions like you just mentioned. And some of my colleagues in the bankruptcy world have told me that there's these companies that'll come in and they'll take your 1998 Ford Taurus. You sign a power of attorney or perhaps endorse the title over to them. They're getting a free car. You're getting it out of your possession, and then they have the time and the expertise to negotiate with the lender to get the junk title or just figure it out. So there's things to do. It's so frustrating. I have a client I filed a Chapter 7, and he just needs to get rid of the car. It's a real monkey on his back, and his landlord's after him, and now his landlord wants to charge him a storage fee to have this jalopy in the backyard, and
Yeah.
it can be very frustrating. So it's there's solutions out there, but we understand that there's challenges. So, is this, you said you had 9 jobs. this podcast, what number job would this be?
Oh, well, this would be 10. But again, this isn't a job. This is pure joy. Talking about what we do in a positive way to help people understand and improve their lives, that's magical, right?
Isn't that wonderful?
It is. I mean, when we started 20 to 30 years ago, people came in with all these misconceptions and fears and stayed away and suffered because they had misconceptions and fears. And the internet and podcasts and things like this have opened doors for people. And I think that's the most amazing progress. It's great.
Yeah, media has changed so much, and I don't know if you're a listener to Mark Belling on WISN here in Milwaukee, but he's the longest running talk show host in the state of Wisconsin. He's been doing it since I moved back here in 1993. And he finally announced this week that he's leaving the radio and just going to an all podcast format,
Oh, no
um,
kidding.
which is really interesting and kind of says a lot because his listenership is really huge, and he feels like he can, and not only feels, he will be able to impact as large an audience or a larger audience doing it through podcasting. And podcasting probably been around 5, 6 years, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Really big in the last 5, 6. I think they said it's like 15, but it was slow at the beginning.
just just crazy. Well, I want to thank you and thank all of our listeners for tuning in to this edition of the Miller Law Chronicles podcast. A listenership continues to expand. Now that you're married, I know Matt listens to us all the time. So
Uh,
now we have Felicia and Matt listening. So we have a total of two, which is really good. But thank you. You make this really fun. I always enjoy my 30 minutes of time with Miss Stencel. And have a great weekend.
you
And
too.
for everyone else out there, if you like what you're hearing, like us, subscribe to us, do all that kind of fun stuff. And I think you'll get some interesting information from us each week. I know you will. Have a great day. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye.